Welcome to the Big Picture Retirement Show, where you'll learn what it really takes to have a successful retirement. With over 20 years of experience, your host, Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has seen it all and is here to help you achieve your retirement dreams. This is the Big Picture Retirement Show.
Welcome into the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. I'm Mark Elliott. Glad you're with us today. Rick is a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has over 20 years experience in the financial industry, and Safeguard is all about helping you come up with your big picture blueprint. Your picture for your retirement. What are you going to do? How are you going to spend your time? Are you traveling? Are you staying here? You need a new car? What are you looking forward to in retirement? The bucket list items and all of that. You need an income plan. You need an investment strategy. You need a tax-efficient strategy. You need health care, long-term care planning, legacy planning. What about Social Security and Medicare? Well, Social Security is in the income part. Medicare is in the health care part. A lot of moving pieces. If you have questions, you're like, well, I don't have that kind of a plan for my retirement. Well, then talk with the team at Safeguard. There's no cost for this whatsoever. It's 800-700-1980. Give them a call. Might be one of the more important phone calls you make. 800-700-1980. And then you can always find out more about Safeguard just by going to the website, safeguardinvestment.com, safeguardinvestment.com. Hey, Rick, how are you?
Real good. Thanks, Mark.
We're going to talk about a lot of things today. We're going to talk about some topics that really should be something to think about on your retirement planning list. So, to-do list. Are you a to-do list person? Is your wife a to-do list person? Do you have big to-dos?
Yeah, she gives me to-do lists, that's for sure.
Do you have a time limit?
A to-do list for me, not for her.
Right.
So anything that she needs done, she puts a to-do list for me.
You know, and some of the challenges with a to-do list, some are great, right, if you give two or three. But if she gave you 20 things to do, I'm thinking you're going to look at that with a bad attitude.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it goes right into the trash.
Exactly. So we need to be clear and concise. We don't need a whole overwhelming list of things. But when you think about retirement and what you and the team, you and Reed and Eddie do for your clients at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, are there topics that kind of maybe stand out among others in the retirement planning world?
Yeah, I would think probably, income for sure off the top of my head. Obviously, healthcare, long-term care, taxes. I mean, just the first three just popped into my head as we're talking right now.
So when you're building that big picture blueprint, is that kind of where it starts with the income side? We've got to replace the paychecks that are no longer coming in?
100%. And here's a key thing that I want to mention. Mark, it's one thing for someone to feel they won that comfortable retirement. It's another thing for them to be able to maintain it. And if I can give you an example about the income, because here's where people may get overly confident right at the beginning. If I can take you back to like 2007, the market was peaking back then, and a lot of people went to these brokers, whatever, and one of the big things was there's something called the 4% rule that basically says as long as you're pulling 4% of your money out, it'll last you forever. The challenge is that a lot of this information that people are getting out there are old, antiquated rules that don't work anymore. And if you think about it, people back in 2007, they were retiring. They're like, okay, great. I got the income I need. I won the comfortable retirement. Their brokers ran them their Monte Carlo simulations and said, hey, as long as you're using the 4% rule, you're good. 2008 occurs. And if your account is down 10 and you're pulling out 4, you're now down 14. You can't exactly call the electric company, phone company and say, listen, can I put you off until the market rebounds again? So now going into next year, you still need another 4 to live on. So now you're down 18. So now you're actually making the problem worse. And this is why we've seen a lot of people back in 07, 08, 09, they ended up going back to work again. So, again, this is a scenario where if people are using old antiquated rules, they no longer work. So income planning is key in retirement to make sure that going forward, not only can we guarantee the income that under any economic condition, our income is guaranteed, but we also have to be in a position where we can make sure that income will keep up with inflation. And then also something else that plays a factor in here that many people don't even realize is that if one spouse predeceases the other, hey, we may lose a Social Security check or part of a pension check. And how do we make up those differences? So there's a lot that goes into it. And unfortunately, a lot of people are using old antiquated rules that don't work anymore. That 4% rule was created over 30 years ago. Yeah. Things are different.
Yeah, I think Bill Bingen is the one that started that 4% rule, and he did a lot of research, but it was in the 90s. He
Oh,
is
you know your
even
stuff.
Yeah, he's even
Oh, I'm
come out.
surprised you brought up that name. I didn't realize you knew it.
He's even come back since and said, "Hey, the 4% rule is perfect in the 90s. It
Uh-huh.
doesn't work in today's world." Now, there are probably some people that could pull 4% and be okay, but the numbers are less. And that 4% rule today is, well, it might work for you, but there is no guarantee. So it's really, that's why you sit down with a team like Safeguard to figure out what can you pull, because your working years are your accumulation phase, right? You're working, you're saving, and you're hoping someday to be able to retire to the lifestyle that you had during your working years and maintain it and do the things you want to do. That's what the team at Safeguard's all about, is helping you figure that out. How much income do you need? How do we have increasing income with inflation and things kind of double in price in 20 years probably during your retirement? Income is where it starts. The Big Picture Blueprint covers a lot of areas, but it does start with income. 800-700-1980. And if you'd like to find out more about some of the challenges in retirement and some of the positives from retirement, Rick and the team at Safeguard have created this toolkit for you. It's got a lot of different topics in it. Might be taxes, could be Social Security, but it's got these retirement guides for you, and it's just there for your information. All you have to do is text the word toolkit to 951-667-4969. Text the word toolkit, 951-667-4969, and you'll get all this. It's a great opportunity for you just to educate yourself. Plus, you're going to get Reed's webinar of 30 minutes, and it's really the presentation that Rick and Reed and the team do at their presentations. It's an hour and a half, cut it down to 30 minutes, really hitting the high points. So a lot of things come with this. Just text the word toolkit, no cost, 951-667-4969. You know, one of the challenges, Rick, and certainly in Southern California, rent and buying a home, it's really cheap. It's not expensive at all. How do we know if we've saved enough to retire? Because it probably depends on what's your location, where you're going to be, where you're going to live, how much, if you have your house paid off. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts here. How do we know, the old commercial, I think it was, ING? Hey, what's your number? That's your number? Yeah, that's what they say. That's my number. I suppose we do have a number, but how do we figure that out?
You know what? That's by having a plan. And the challenge is that if you're going to be saving and putting money away and planning for retirement in a vacuum without a plan, that's where people get into trouble, because they'll wait till, the day that they're retiring, think, okay, great, let me put together a plan now. And then they find out, wait a minute, hold on, maybe I don't have enough to maintain the standard of living that I want in retirement. I was just, pulling 10% out of my paycheck for many years because that's what the internet told me to do, or I was doing this because this is what something that I read in a book, and it wasn't specific to their situation. So unfortunately, we do see retirees from time to time that when they retire, they find out, hey, wait a minute, I now have to make a choice. If I want to be able to travel and do some of the things I want to do, maybe now I have to sell my principal residence and move out of state or move someplace where, I have to downsize so I can afford to do some of the things I truly want to do. Where if the earlier we start our planning, then, the better prepared we're going to be. So I think that whether you are retired right now or maybe you're planning for retirement, either way, by sitting down with a professional, they can, look at your overall situation and figure out what areas you can enhance. And I think the earlier we do our planning, the better when it comes to stuff like that.
And
rather than get caught by surprise.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you think of the Big Picture Blueprint, there's a lot of things, moving parts, and it's a plan. You first have to sit down with a single person, a divorced person, a widow or widower, a married couple. Everybody's situation is unique, and then you have to figure out, okay, how can we help them? And can we help them? Then if you can help them, that's up to them. Do they want your help? But at the end of the day, there's a lot of give and take. You have to understand their lifestyle and what they want to do and all of that. It's not the pie chart retirement where, hey, all you have to do is just call me. If you need some of your money, just call me and we'll send you a check. That's maybe the 90s way to retire. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, totally. You're 100% right on that, Mark. Again, it's going to require a plan and understanding the individual. And, if you can be put in a situation where you don't have to make compromises, why not? And, you just can't put it off.
At the end of the day, when you're thinking about your retirement and you think about income, And that's one of the questions, right? Do I have enough to be able to retire? Will my money last as long as I or we need it to? Those are big, big questions. Can we retire and maintain our lifestyle? Are we going to be okay if we retire? That's really what we want to know. Well, that's exactly what Safeguard Investment Advisory Group is all about, helping you create your big picture blueprint: income, investment, taxes, healthcare, legacy planning. And it's all 5 pillars are the same for all the clients, but what goes inside depends upon whom they're sitting down with. It is about you. What do you want to do? How are you going to spend your time? What do you need? What are you hoping to do? Are you going to need a new car? Are you going to downsize, which may not be cheaper, but you need to? Everybody's situation is unique, and that's how Rick and the team look at it. They are here to help if they can. Again, it's 800-700-1980. 15-minute phone call. There's no cost. There's no obligation. There is no pressure for this whatsoever. I think it might be one of the most important phone calls you make. Actually having an actual retirement plan to give you confidence and clarity moving forward. 800-700-1980. So we talked about, Rick said there's 3 really big things right off the top of his head that he thinks about when it comes to the retirement planning list. Income. That's what we talked about. The next segment, we're going to touch on the other 2. Healthcare/long-term care, and then taxes. One of the biggest question marks that all of us have really moving forward since we're in the IRA 401k retirement world. That's not like our grandparents who retired with pensions. Most of us today don't. There's still some out there. Congratulations if you've got one, but it's a different thing. So we're going to touch on healthcare and taxes when we come back right here on the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group.
You're listening to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. For more information about Rick and the Safeguard Investment Advisory Group team, go to safeguardinvestment.com. While you're there, you can also download educational retirement guides and sign up for an upcoming seminar. That's safeguardinvestment.com. Now, back to the podcast.
Glad you're with us today for the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera of Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, the team that's here to help you create your retirement plan. It's called the Big Picture Blueprint. It'll give you direction, really give you some clarity on your road to retirement. Income planning, investment planning, tax-efficient planning, healthcare, long-term care strategies, legacy planning, Social Security decisions. That's in the income part. Medicare decisions in the healthcare part. There's no cost. There's no pressure, no obligation to chat with the team. 800-700-1980. And I do want to remind you, it's a great opportunity for you to get information about retirement that maybe you're on the cusp. Maybe you're 5 years out from retirement. You're like, man, there's a lot of things I need to know about. Text the word toolkit to 951-667-4969, and you get some retirement guides from the team at Safeguard. You'll also get the webinar that Reed Aberdeen put together. It's their presentation at their open events, if you will. That's an hour and a half, and they've cut it down to 30 minutes, so it's a little bit more concise for you. But the toolkit has retirement guides, plus has that webinar. You'd like this? There's no cost to you. There's no pressure. There's no obligation. It's just there for your information. Just text the word toolkit to 951-667-4969. Text the word toolkit to 951-667-4969. So we're talking about if you're a to-do lister, right? Hey, this weekend we've got to do this. Here's our 3 things or 5 things or whatever that we really need to accomplish this week, this month, whatever. I'm not a big list maker. Rick will get his to-do list from his wife that he's better snap to it and get to it.
Yeah, exactly.
So you think about it, though. When you think of retirement, I said, okay, Rick, right off the top of your head, what are some of the top planning things that we need to do for retirement? He said income, right? You got to replace paychecks that are no longer coming in. You got to maintain your lifestyle. Income is really how you do that. And there's other parts, obviously, investment strategies and so forth. But he said it's really income, it's healthcare, and it's taxes. So let's touch on healthcare. Healthcare, man, even before inflation became a factor, you go back to the Great Recession ending in 2009, it seemed like every year we're going, well, healthcare is up 5%, healthcare is up 6%. Healthcare has never slowed down. It's just kept going up and up. My mom has now gone from unassisted living at $3,000 a month to assisted living at $9,000 a month. Yeah. There's a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah. And you can spend down an estate very quickly. And we're talking about 2 different things. When we talk about healthcare and we're talking about retirement, there's a lot of people that would like to retire prior to 65. But then once they find out how much healthcare is going to be prior to 65, they're like, wait a minute, I may have to rethink this. Because again, planning wasn't done ahead of time. And, healthcare per person, if you're 62 and you want to retire before 65, before Medicare age, it could cost you $1,000, $1,200 a month per person. So now you're talking over $2,000 for a couple for healthcare insurance. Many people are like, wait a minute, you know what? I may have to go to 65 before I decide to retire. So there are obviously strategies and plans that we use to help people so they can retire earlier if they choose to. But then the other big thing is that long-term care costs. A lot of people don't realize that, if they're in a situation where you may not necessarily need a nurse, but let's say you get to a point where you can't do all the heavy lifting anymore, and maybe you need a caretaker to come into the home, or like you said about your mom, maybe you need it to go to an assisted living place. At $9,000 a month, that can eat into an estate real quickly. And especially, when you have a well spouse at home, that can cause a real dramatic effect on their lifestyle.
I think a lot of people, Rick, think that, once I get to 65, Medicare is going to be there, which is a great thing. There's no question. But it's not the be-all. It's not going to take care of everything. You're still going to have – Fidelity says right now it's over $300,000 for the healthy 65-year-old couple through the end of their life that they'll have to spend on health care. And that's with Medicare. It's the premiums and all of that. Medicare is good, but it's not going to alleviate all your health care money situation, I would guess.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Because, let's face it. People know there's things that, health insurance just doesn't cover. And guess who's got to, you fill in that gap out of your own pocket, and just with co-pays and everything else. So, people are shocked at the sticker price of healthcare when it comes to retirement. And then obviously, like you were saying earlier, as time goes on, the cost of healthcare continues to rise. So maybe, you're 62, 65, you're healthy, but as we get older, when we need the health insurance the most, that's when it's the most expensive at the same time. So it's almost like a double whammy, because we're going to need it later on, and it's more expensive as time goes on.
And Medicare is not going to cover long-term care. It might for 30 days, but it's not going to be there for 3 years if you need it.
No.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, some people might say, well, long-term care insurance. And when you talk about long-term care planning, the first thing that comes to people's minds is, well, long-term care insurance. Now, understand long-term care insurance is one way you can handle that. And we know it can be very expensive. However, there are other strategies that can be used in order to help protect against long-term care spend down. So even though we understand long-term care insurance, and we understand also the disadvantages, one of the reasons why I guess some people run away or steer away from long-term care insurance, because it is expensive, and as time goes on, the cost of those premiums, go up. If you cancel it because now you can't afford it anymore, you lose the money, and if you pass away, the beneficiaries can't get it. There are programs now available that actually are just the opposite of that, so that if you can plan without losing your money, so to speak, by pouring it into traditional long-term care insurance. And I would suggest that anybody that's interested in doing that planning, sit down with a professional or give us a call, and we can show you a variety of different strategies outside of, we'll call it, traditional long-term care insurance to help address that issue.
Yeah, certainly, because and by the way, that number is 800-700-1980, 800-700-1980, because we paid for home insurance and car insurance, and hopefully we've not needed it, but we knew we had to have it, and we don't want to pay for long-term care in case we don't need it and we lose it. We don't want to anymore buy it, and then we lose it if we don't have it. So there's a lot of options in all this. This is what the team at Safeguard can really help guide you, whether it's the income part, investment, taxes, healthcare, legacy planning. There are options, and I think it would be great to sit down with a team that actually can give you those options, and you make the right decision for you with the right amount of information. So finally, it's taxes. Taxes are one of those things. I think people are more aware maybe of taxes now because of IRAs and 401ks, the tax deferred issues, and do I move money to the Roth world? Do people still overlook the importance of having a tax plan in retirement?
100%. 100%. Because I think I was saying on one of the shows we were talking about, for some reason, I think when we talk about taxes, a lot of people think there's nothing they can do. They think about just regular standard deductions and exemptions. I think that's the first thing that comes to their mind. And I think they assume that because, their stockbroker or their tax preparer hasn't shared any ideas with them, there's nothing they can do. But when it comes to taxes in retirement, we have to look at the investments, how they're positioned. There's ways to minimize taxes on the investments, but then also we have to realize that there's ways to also minimize taxes on your Social Security. There's ways to minimize taxes on the pensions. There's ways to minimize taxes on a variety of other areas outside of maybe what you're thinking of, what comes first, just standard deductions and exemptions. So there are different strategies that can be used to minimize the taxation on these things. And these different strategies that I'm talking about are the same strategies we discuss in the workshops or on that webinar that you were mentioning earlier, Mark.
So we're about to run out of time, Rick. So I thought I would give you an opportunity, because that number is 800-700-1980, 45-minute chat, 30 to 45 minutes. Just you get to talk to Rick about, here's some of the questions and concerns I have. Do you think you could help? Am I on the right track? Do I need to make a tweak? What do you always say to people that, if nothing else, they'll get what out of that chat?
Yeah, if you give me 45 minutes, we've been doing this long enough that if you give me 45 minutes, I'll be able to give you at least 2 ideas that will enhance whatever it is that you've been able to accomplish. So that's basically the promise that I'll make you.
2 ideas that will enhance whatever it is you're currently doing.
Because the only problem is that, Mark, you're always rushing me on the show. I can never give them, all the exact details. So the only way they'll be able to get it is by tuning in and see me.
Exactly. We're kind of here and we're out. A lot of information in a short amount of time. But that might make it even more worth the opportunity to come in and sit down with Rick. He's going to give you a couple ideas that maybe you've never thought of before. And you're like, wow, I mean, the light bulb goes off, that aha moment you didn't even know. 800-700-1980. I still think it's one of the most important calls you could make, because it's about planning for the next 20, 30 years of your life. We spend a lot of time planning that 2-week vacation, but we don't think about, we just kind of wing the retirement part. Right. 70, 80% of us do not have a retirement plan. The team at Safeguard can certainly help you create that. And again, if you would like the toolkit, the retirement toolkit with the retirement guides, the webinar that Reed did, text the word toolkit to 951-667-4969. No cost for that either. 951-667-4969. Rick, always a pleasure chatting with you. I always learn. I'm 63. I'm supposed to know this stuff. I don't. So I appreciate all the insight.
Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate your time. You have a great day.
Firm offers insurance services. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC, is a registered investment advisory firm. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual's situation. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC, is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC. This radio show is a paid placement.